Hey guys, welcome to the Unshakable Man podcast, a podcast and community for men who want to create spaces where we can practice tools and skills to get out of our heads and egoic patterns and to get into our bodies. I'm Chris Wilson, and I'm here today with Mike Messersmith and Londell Jackson, two community stewards within our community. I'll give you both an opportunity to say hello.
Hey everybody, Mike Messersmith here. Glad to be on this final episode with y'all.
And this is Londell Jackson. Hello, nice to see you all again. I guess actually I'm not seeing anybody, but I'm speaking to you all again, so hello.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike and Londell. And Mike, I hope this isn't the last one as well. I have a feeling we're going to be doing quite a few of these together, but this is the final session of our 4-week fundamentals course. So the 4-week fundamentals course. We do have 5 sections for this. The first section, if you've listened to it already, is our course overview and community welcome section. And then we have section 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each of those sections represent going through 1 week of the course or going to one group. And again, just to repeat myself for anyone who might not have listened to all the other episodes, this is an open format, an open cohort-based format, meaning we restart the course together as a group the first week of every month. And then we go through it at the pace that we can do. So we've designed this so that you can go listen to one section of the material and then go to one group a week over 4 weeks. So technically, if you wanted to be organized and you wanted to keep up with us, you would go through each of the 4 groups over 4 weeks and you'd be able to finish in a month. But if you lose pace or you can't commit to coming to a group every single week, we've designed it so that if you want to come every other week or every 3rd week, you could take 1, 2, or 3 months to finish this. But the point here is to make a somatic journey, to actually experience being in the group, in an Unshakable Man group 4 times. And so tonight, the theme is celebration, appreciation, and commitment. Celebration, appreciation, and commitment. And it's really important to me tonight that we tie these into the somatic journey, into the actual direct experience of being in a group and going through this program. Okay, so I'm going to go through each of these themes. I'm just going to give each an overview of how we see these coming up to connect them to the fundamentals training. And then we're going to spend some time together as a group just talking about our relationship with each one of these themes. Okay, so first of all, celebration. There's celebration, appreciation, and commitment. So celebration, yes, this is the end of the fundamentals training. And a big part of getting to the end of the fundamentals training is going from joining our community to being able to belong to the community. And you deserve the opportunity to celebrate this. This is a big deal. Not a lot of men out there have had the opportunity to be in a men's group, let alone to go through a process and be in 4 groups with a group of other men who all have the intention to slow down and to create spaces to practice tools and skills to get out of our heads and into our bodies. And part of that intention, what makes this work so special, is that outside of this space, in the default environments that we exist in, we can't carry that intention all of the time, or at least everyone in our social milieu, everybody in our community isn't showing up with that same intention. And so this creates a very, very special container, a very special opportunity. And this felt experience is sacred. This is what makes this work so sacred. Right? Is this ability to learn to create these spaces and to actually show up and do this. And inside of our groups, when a man does something that we that is constructive, when a man shows up in the way that he wants to show up, when a man shares something and we want to celebrate it or to reinforce it with that man in the group, we celebrate. We actually learn how to create celebration techniques. And we're going to have more information inside the Learning Center, but this is how there's a somatic reason on and in the body for doing this. And a big part of it is to reinforce the body's autonomic systems, because if we celebrate doing something, the body gets better at doing what we celebrate. Okay, and this work is really challenging, right? We're going back to places inside that maybe haven't had a voice, and we're sometimes creating a space to be with emotions that outside of these spaces, we do everything we can to move away from. Okay, and the body's protective parts are reinforced around that. And so when we actually create that space to come back to those places inside, or we find an edge and we sit with that. The Alan Watts backwards law is that wanting an experience to be different than it is a negative experience, but being with an experience as it is, or accepting an experience, is a positive experience, right? And so a lot of times in these spaces, after we move through a process and we have an experience in the group, we will want to celebrate it. And you'll see me do a double high five over my head, or go like, yes. And that's not a show. That's not fantastic. There's an embodied reason why we do this. And so your stretch this week, if you've made it this far in the program, is to show up in a group and celebrate. Just celebrate that you did it. And the other men in the space will do that with you. So now appreciation. Appreciation is a very special somatic state of being. If I am appreciating something, I am in between the experience and the intellect, the intellectual understanding of something. And so when I say I am appreciating, I am in this very unique area where I'm able to bring in some information, some stuff that I might have learned from a book or from listening to this podcast, right? Or from reading the material, right? And then I'm actually being in and on that experience in my body. And so many times in these groups, after a man shares or after a man shows up in a certain way, men in the space will take a moment to reflect back to that man. And we start by saying, I am appreciating. I am appreciating. And if you're listening to this right now, if you want to test this out, just go ahead and say that phrase to yourself. I am appreciating. I am appreciating. And then go ahead and fill in whatever comes to you after that. And there's something special about this state of being. We're in the experience and we're appreciating something about it. And when we do that in these groups, we start to connect even more. Okay? And this is how we start to share in each other's experience, and how one man's experience will help me interpret or share my relationship or understand my relationship with something. Okay. And so the next stretch that you have in your fourth group is to simply appreciate what you've learned about this experience. What have you seen? What has specifically occurred in coming to your first four groups? And then to appreciate that in a few different ways with the men in the space. Okay. So practice appreciating. And then commitment. We've made it through your first four groups. You've joined a community, but joining a community is not belonging to the community. And when you get to the end of this fundamentals course, you have the ability to acknowledge what your commitment is to the practice. And what makes this, again, very, very special for men who are going through this journey or who have committed to showing up to the fundamentals course is that when you get to the end, you get to acknowledge to a group of men in the space, what is your commitment? Are you committing to stay here and to continue on this journey so that then the men who hear you make that commitment, what they can do is they can begin to track with you. They know when you make that commitment in the group, they now can commit to you. They can look forward to doing their work around you and with you. Maybe you've been through this process, you've gotten to the end, and then you're not really sure if this is something that you are going to show up to every single week, or if you're going to come once a month, if you're going to make it the last week of the month. So whatever that commitment is for you, many men shy away when we don't know what to say, when we don't know if we're committed to something. What do? We disappear. Right? Many men disappear, and many people have abandoned us in our lives or have simply drifted away. When we didn't know what to say, it was easier to just deny that and to just drift away. And so our invite to you, if you're here and you're listening to this and you're in the final week and you think you might not show back up, come to a group and acknowledge your commitment. Celebrate having finished. Appreciate what your experience was like, and then acknowledge what your real commitment is. When a man does that, we have a specific name for this, and it's called burning a hidden contract. This is a word that's used. It's a skill. It's one of the 5 empathetic skills outlined by Carla McLaren in the Language of Emotions, which is an amazing resource. I highly suggest reading. That's one of the top 5 books that I would recommend for this kind of work. And what that is we all know what it's like when we've made a commitment that might be direct or indirect commitment to someone or something. And we feel some attachment to that. Okay. And if we let ourselves exist, go on in relationship, knowing that we're not going to live up to this contract or to this commitment, well, then what happens is we actually are existing in some disintegrated state. And that disintegrated state causes an anxiety. Our word really, truly matters. And so when you actually burn that contract, when you come into the space and change what was there and acknowledge what your actual agreement is with that person, you then come back to being in integrity. There's always this sense of relief. But psychosomatically, there can feel like there's a barrier there. It can be fear or insecurity. There's something to move through. And so in the final week of the fundamentals training, your commitment, burning that hidden contract, coming to a group and actually saying, guys, I did it. This was a really cool experience. This is what I'm appreciating about it. I'm celebrating that I made it. Whether it took you 1 month or 2 months or 3 months to come to all 4 groups, you did it. And then standing in front of a group of men and acknowledging that I'm good. I'm going to go my own way. Goodbye. That is a powerful, powerful practice. And so it's important to me that you guys know this, right? Because if you're listening to this and you join this community, this kind of goes against the common story in my head about what I should be saying, right? I should want every man that signs up for this to stay and to become a part of the Unshakable Man community. And if 10 men join, it's right, Mike? It's so sad that, I don't even know what to say right now, right? There's this common message from our culture that's once you start, it would be horrible if people didn't stay, or everybody should be here. But this isn't like some online course where you're not connected to a group of other human beings. This is a real experience. And we want you to show up and to be able to learn how to acknowledge your commitment. And if you don't do that, you're more than welcome to just send us an email, right? Send us an email. It's on the page. If you just want to cancel your membership and you're done and you don't want to show up to a group, but I urge you and I invite you to actually come into the space and have your final group, because it's a big practice. It's an amazing practice to learn to start to realign your sense of integrity and to practice burning hidden contracts, realigning your commitment. So did I do a good job, guys, going over our final 3 themes, celebration, appreciation, and commitment? I can't wait to hear what your guys' perspective is on each of these. I think this has been one of the most, for me, one of the most exhilarating parts of getting to show up with you guys over the past 4 sessions has been getting to witness and just hear what your relationship is with each of these sections. So Mike, I guess I'll just start with you. I mean, first of all, if there's anything that based on just what we're coming in with for the final stage here, you're more than welcome to share it, but I'm very, very interested. What is your relationship, or what comes up for you when it comes to celebration? And
yeah, and before I get into that, Chris, what I just want to reiterate to the men listening to this that, when you get to the 4th group and you, as Chris stated, you want to burn that hidden contract, it's totally cool. It's a powerful, powerful experience for you and for all the other men that are sharing in that experience. Mm-hmm. So, don't feel like, it's not okay. Because, I mean, that's just the bullshit that we put on ourselves, right? So, coming forth and being genuine, I mean, that is so powerful, and it is so freaking cool that, I just had to reiterate that. Because, that's really important for me.
I love how you said, like, don't feel it, but maybe like that is what this space is made for, right? Is to feel that, right? And so bring it in here. We're okay with it, right? Like that's the intention.
Yeah. Great point. Great point. So celebration.
Yeah.
I would say celebration is something that happens in almost every group that I'm in. There's always something for us to celebrate. I mean, just this past week, I was in a group and I literally celebrated this podcast in the group. I mean, a lot of times, I'll come into a group and other men will as well. But for me, a lot of times it's like there's some kind of shit going on in my life, and I'm like, this fucking thing or that, or it's just, I'm just like, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling emotional, I'm whatever.
Yeah, down.
Yeah, but so this past Wednesday when I came into group, I was feeling ebullient. That was the word that I used, which everybody's like, what the hell are you talking about, Messersmith? But anyway, I was just feeling so up about the fundamentals course that, we totally celebrated that in the, in the group, and it was awesome. And, the guys in the group really dug it. I mean, they were like, they wanted to know more and hear about it and all that kind of stuff, because, it's an exciting time for our community, and so celebration.
Awesome. For my reflection on celebration, I wrote down a few different things that I heard from you guys. This outside of these spaces, our culture tells us we need to try hard in order to succeed, right? Or even in order to survive, right? Or to protect ourselves. There's this constant message of needing to try hard versus allowing ourselves to be the open-hearted person, the open-hearted warrior that we are, right? To just be good, to just be that we are innately good on the inside. We don't have to actually try so hard to do it, right? And this message, right, leads us to being focused outside toward our aspirations. And that trying creates an anxiety. It creates this tension on or in our body. And the science backs this up. If we look at go to the Human Behavior Design Lab at Stanford University, run by Dr. B.J. Fogg, who is the author of a book called The Tiny Habit Method. In that, all of the research around creating habits or creating positive habits, not trying to get rid of bad habits, but trying to create healthy habits, is around the main thing that they show is that if you make the action tiny and you find a trigger that triggers the action, it's learning how to celebrate doing the small thing. Because the body gets better at doing what it repeatedly does. Not the body, and the brain doesn't have a negative reward system. It only has positive. It only has, you did this, so that is getting reinforced. So in our culture of manhood, we are motivated often through fear, or another form of fear, insecurity, or the potential of loss. So loss aversion, right, which is a kind of fear, and shame. These are the tools that motivate us. So what do we get better at doing with ourselves? We get better at shaming ourselves. We get better at being more anxious, right? And then how do we respond to that? We cultivate these protective go-getter parts that can fight through it, right? These intense, like often militaristic, right? Like these personas of what it means to be a man. And it's like, no wonder why we cultivate that. Now, I'm not saying that those personas are bad, but if we're doing it without awareness of the realization that I can put this on, but this isn't all of me, right? So that I can also be tender and open, right? And flexible, right? And it's the flexible system that survives, not the rigid, hard one, right? And so when we learn how to celebrate, and when we're in a group, and if you come into the space and you celebrate, and then no matter how my day was, if I'm dropped into that experience with you, and now I'm feeling a sense of celebration and honor in my body, and I go and embody it and reinforce it, I'm actually just simply getting better at using the tool of micro celebrations to drip, 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 cheer myself on. But I'm not using the intellect. I'm not thinking happy thoughts. I'm not trying to be to explain away my life. I'm actually physically, in reality, celebrating in the moment, right? So I could be unhappy, but be feeling joy, right? And it's this thing that is just so powerful. And I hear it from men in our community over and over again. And yeah, we'll probably have to in the future do a mini course just on how to create a celebration technique. But one of the exercises that we will suggest in the Learning Center is to get a solo cup, right? Just go get a container, a Target. Any container can work. Or if you're like the average man who's been through a college institution in the United States, and you've played a game where you throw a ping pong ball into a solo cup, that's exactly what I'm talking about right there, beer pong. But this is the same exercise that they did at Stanford University in the Human Behavior Design Lab in order to create the embodied sense of celebration. And so what you do is you simply throw the ping pong ball into the target and you wait. And when you get it in, you listen to your body and you start to notice that, wow, my body celebrates. And then you learn to start to reinforce that into your own embodied action. So it can be like a fist pump or a noise in your head, like the Super Mario Brothers flag sound, do, 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 right? Or you can do a double high five over your head like I do and like we do in our community a lot. But the key here for me to make is that this is scientifically based behavior modification technique that teaches you to use celebration to generate habits, right? Rather than using shame and fear, right? To motivate ourselves, which just opens us up to feeling good more often. When we feel good, we take risks. We're more creative. We're more compassionate. We're more calm, right? And that is the point of this work, to be in that self energy. So, practicing celebration. All right. Your stretch is to go to this group, to your fourth group, and to simply celebrate that you did it. Appreciation. Mike, what comes up for you when you appreciate appreciation?
Again, I think it dovetails nicely with the celebration, because appreciating another man puts me in a better, in a more positive state, and it lifts my spirits. Just listening to Londell a minute ago talking about celebration, I just felt appreciation for his definition, for the way he views celebration. And so feeling that appreciation makes me want to celebrate more. Right? He said, I'll celebrate the little things, getting out of bed in the morning, whatever, eating healthy, or, whatever it is, grabbing a kale chip when I really want a Dorito, right? And celebrating that, I'm being a little healthier today than I normally would be.
Did you do that today, Mike? Did you eat a kale chip?
I did not.
Okay. I'll still celebrate. We're still gonna celebrate. I ate a seaweed chip. I haven't had one of those in a while, but
nice. Yeah. So just you will find yourself as you start going to groups. You've probably already experienced this in some of the groups you've been in, but you'll start feeling that appreciation for what other men are going through and how that impacts you. And again, it's just a very powerful emotion and a very powerful feeling.
Thanks, Mike.
I think for me, being with the TUM community and engaging in men's work in general, I definitely just I've learned to appreciate community. I've learned to appreciate connection because of all the things that Mike just shared. I realized, thinking back about all of the things that the things that I've contributed to the conversation, and I've contributed a lot of things about being active in circles, and I haven't really spoke about being passive, meaning just being silent and listening. And Mike has, and I'm going to second that finally. That there is so much to gain from sitting still and listening and receiving what other men have to say and what other men experience, and celebrating with men, receiving and listening to their difficulties and how they're managing through those difficulties, reflecting with them when they would like reflection and they welcome reflection. All of that is, it is so incredibly nurturing. And that's just stuff that you just can't buy. And it's invaluable. It really is. And, I don't know, and this analogy has been in my head through this entire session or series. And I'm definitely not a Star Trek person, so I'm sure there's viewers out there that'll just, shoot me through the screen or through the radio, with a pellet gun or even a slingshot for that matter. There's these.
Oh, Londell.
There's a group of people called the Borg. And they are a hive mind mentality of people. And they apparently are not the best willed of people. Yet, I'm not going to liken the TUM community to the Borg at all. And I can definitely see, however, what it means to be connected with people at that level, when you can feel their feelings and when you can be in community with someone and be connected to that level. So, and that's all I have to say about that.
And we are not the Borg. So I just want to be clear. We are not the Borg.
Yeah. Oh man, this is great. I am appreciating Londell's ability to make me sweat. It's great. I am appreciating the I do. I actually appreciate when you brought in the Borg, right? Or this idea of like the hive mind or getting to be in the experience with another man. What I notice here is that you guys are not actually in my day-to-day. You're not in my physical life here in San Francisco where I live, right? Mike, I've never met you in person. Londell, I've never met you in person. That is wild for me. And I'm excited to get to meet you guys in person soon this year at like some retreats and also just getting together. But the thing that I constantly appreciate about having these groups to come into is that it's like having a third leg to my stool of my life, right? Where because you're not in the day-to-day social milieu that I exist within, there is a rebalancing, right? Like if I am heightened or if I'm low, when I come into a group and a man receives me and mirrors back to me what he is seeing on and in my body and the micro expressions that I make, the tone, just how I show up, or by my patience and listening, just being with you guys for an hour once a week in my life, it shows me, it's like a litmus test of where, how am I doing in comparison, right? Because it's so easy to get enmeshed in my life with my fiance. It's so easy to get enmeshed into what's happening in my family, right? Or in the friends that I have here in San Francisco. But when I show up in a group where there's this structure and I get to, it's like a speed bump in my week. And then I do that over and over again. It has this grounding and allowing affect to it that is very, very helpful. It's like I see myself through the experience of being in the group. And I really do appreciate that. And then and then just saying like I am appreciating brings me into the present. And I'll often notice that it's so easy for me to, and I hear this from men repeatedly in the community, where it's so easy for me to hear myself in a group talking about, initially being inspired to talk about something I don't like. Maybe something that frustrated me about my partner, right? Or something that frustrated me about something that happened with a friend or in life, right? But that is the initial, that's what initially comes out. That's the emotional residue that I might be carrying. But then to practice appreciation, I start actually appreciating the way my partner, when we go to the grocery store together, how much in my life she brings into my life for me. And I'll start using those words like, babe, like I really appreciate this, or I really appreciate that. And it's like, just like with the celebration, it starts to leak out into my life, and appreciation is in the present, right? Like when I'm appreciating something, I'm not appreciating a fantasy out in the future or some aspiration. I'm appreciating something that's right here. And so my embodied state, I'm in the present more. And the more I'm in the present, the more I'm not in anxiety, right? A lot of appreciation going on today. And so commitment. I'm excited to talk about commitment for myself, but Mike, where do you go when you come back into your relationship with the community and around commitment?
I guess for me, I've committed to a couple of different groups, throughout the week. So there's a Tuesday group and a Wednesday group, and I've committed to those groups. And so one of the things that, as having made that commitment to myself and to the other men in those groups, when I can't make one of those groups, I let the facilitator know, hey, I'm not gonna be able to be here tonight, for whatever reason, other commitments have taken place or whatever. So I think it's important for me to have those commitments and keep those commitments. And when I can't, be genuine, be authentic, and let people know, hey, life happens, and it's gonna happen. And what I felt in my past, so this is something that has come to me through this, is that when I committed to something, but then didn't, maybe missed a week, missed 2 weeks, and then I get this feeling inside myself that's like, oh, what are all these people thinking about me because I haven't showed up and haven't said anything, and so then I start pulling back. I feel myself kind of shrinking in, and sometimes I just never go back.
Yeah,
because I feel bad. I feel shame for having not communicated and for not keeping my commitment to myself. And so then I just let it go. And I think that's going back to something that we talked about earlier, burning that contract, that, that's why I think why it's so important for me. And, in that sense, because it's okay. You can commit to things and it's okay not to make it. Yeah, Chris.
I would love to just say something about that specifically. That, I've over the past 2 years, I've thought about like, how is this different than those other scenarios, right? Because I have those scenarios in my life. I had a job once when I was like 17 that I got at an antique shop that was down the street from where I lived. It was one of the first jobs I ever got. And I just never showed up one day for work. And I kept telling my dad that I was going to work when I wasn't going to work, until one day the shop owner actually told my dad that he'd never been in. And it was just it was horrible. It was horrible, right? Like, it was like, I didn't know how to confront that, right? As a young man, like having not shown up. But I think about it all the time now, whenever at 38 years old, it's still with me. Right. But I think that there's something different here in that. And I've thought about this as groups have matured and men have said, well, can our group be about accountability, or can our group be about marriage, or pre-marriage, like guys who are thinking about making a commitment to get married, or can we make it about business? And the reason, what I notice within our practice is that we're really learning to create what's very special, I think, about the Unshakable Man community and about what we are teaching men to do is we're teaching men to create an empty space where you don't have to do anything but show up. And because all you have to do is show up and learn to allow yourself to be there, and the practice is so relaxing. And in that session, because of that core intention to simply practice tools and skills to get out of our head and egoic patterns and to get into our bodies, it almost like erodes that problem, that it really creates this fundamental ground to work with of, if I don't show up, this is the reason for this space to be here, is like, wow, it's actually here for me to come here and to be acknowledged, and to acknowledge that how I'm feeling on or in my body, and to say, guys, I actually feel like shit for not showing up, and to be received, right? And that you don't actually have to do anything to show up in this space. And it reminds me of like our lesson on accountability, how accountability is about belonging and shame. Because when I say that I want Mike or I want Londell, if I want you two to be my accountability buddies, what I'm actually saying is our relationship is important to me. And so for me to return to our relationship intact, I need to do what I say I'm going to do. And so what I'm doing is I'm using the potential of being shamed to reinforce as a motivator to motivate me to do what I say I'm going to do. Now, where an accountability buddy partnership erodes is if I don't return to the container, if I don't return to the relationship to be received by you men, then what actually ends up happening is I need to go find new accountability buddies over and over again. So I'm actually burning these bridges. So what's important in an accountability buddy partnership is not actually that I do what I say I'm going to do. What's important is that I return back to the space, and that when I return back to the space, that the accountability buddies know to receive me, and that we celebrate that I did it. That, hey, like, you returned back here, even though you didn't do what you said you were going to do, you're showing up and you're acknowledging that you didn't do what you said you're going to do. And in our bodies, we can appreciate how hard that is. And so then what do? We celebrate that, and we realign, right? We clear it, we clear the ground, and then we get to make another commitment. Right. And tonight's lesson was not supposed to be about accountability, right? But we will be doing that in future lessons, right? But or in the weekly office hours or coaching call. But the what's so interesting here is that we came back to me is that we've come back to this, right? And that celebration connects into that appreciation, being appreciated, and this commitment to these men that you've called in to be your accountability buddy. And that in so many other places, right? Like, especially in the manosphere, I see accountability is more around force, right? Like you're joining an accountability buddy partnership, and it's really like we're using fear and force to try to get ourselves to do something. And the experience of our life is, while you're into it, sure, maybe it's constructive and you're into it, but then to what end, right? Like, do you really want to live your whole life in that experience of like being at war with your life? Like, that to me is, my answer to that question is no. So
yeah, an interesting story about being held accountable that way, and then I'll shift into commitment.
Yeah. Thank you, Londell.
There was a time that I was really into needing or wanting to lose weight, and I felt I needed to be held accountable, and I wanted to and I joined a gym that used humiliation tactics to get people to the gym and keep people motivated. And my last day at that gym was when someone literally, or I should say actually, threw a Twinkie at my face while I'm on the treadmill. And I can't remember what they said, but it took that act for me to realize, like, is this what I really want, and that I'm paying to be humiliated to this degree, to hold myself accountable.
Wow.
That's a whole other story, and we can get into the psychiatry of that at another day.
Yeah, it's almost, that reminds me of the reinforcing to do a behavior, right? Like you say it, you put a little bit of money in like a bank and in like a escrow, and if you don't do what you say you're going to do, they'll give the money to a charity that you know you don't want it to go to, right? So it's negatively reinforcing you to do this thing. Yeah, we're not doing that.
No, we're not at all. My my commitment statement really relates to both the piece around celebration and it's just in my head. The other
appreciation.
Appreciation, yes, thank you. So I don't remember exactly what we were talking about. But the stewards, we were having our meeting, and we got into the conversation about check-in groups, and I made the admission that I was not attending a check-in group, and I said the reason why I was not attending a check-in group because I just didn't feel connected. I didn't feel blah blah blah, and I related my story to how I was in a cohort and I felt connected to everybody there, and I was just blah 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 blah. And so the long and short of it was that I didn't feel connected, and so I tried going to a group, and I just wasn't connected. So I wasn't going habitually or regularly, so I wasn't holding a commitment to a group. And then I said, well, and then I couldn't find one that fit into my schedule. So I voiced that I wanted, that I couldn't attend any standing group because it didn't fit within my schedule. And so I think it was, another steward had had said, well, how about Tuesday? Are you available on Tuesday? I'm like, well, yeah, I am available on Tuesday. And then he said, well, and he took a quick straw poll and said, well, who's available on Tuesday? And all the stewards happened to be available on Tuesday. And so he said, and followed up, well, if we promise to be there on Tuesdays, can you make it on Tuesday? And I said, certainly, I can do that. And so that really helped me to feel appreciated and celebrated personally. And there was just a lot more going on with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I very much feel, to all of the conversation that we've had about the commitment piece. So not only do I feel that they've made a commitment to me, as well as to the group as a whole, because we also have a group facilitator, but I now have made a commitment to their commitment to me. So it's a reciprocal commitment. And it goes a bit further for me because it's not something that I asked them to do. It's something that they volunteered to do, which again goes into the appreciation piece, because they saw me, they heard me, and they met me where I could be met. And so it's just kind of all full circle. And the funny piece is, at the first meeting that I was available, I totally forgot that I was supposed to be there. And so Mike reminded me, he's like, did you know you were supposed to be there? I'm like, no, I forgot. I forgot. So, but yeah, so it's a blessing.
I think,
Definitely.
thank you so much, Londell. And I hope that we didn't lose the second part of your recording, what you were sharing. I think one of the main things that, that I notice is that we're learning how to create these structures. We're learning how to deepen and to slow down and to drop in and to deepen our relationship with ourselves and with these other men. And then there's the actual experience of that, right? There's the actual, in the experience of my life, I only know what I knew before I come into something like this. And then I have this deepening experience, which changes my awareness outside of this space and makes me realize or see myself in different ways. And then we get to this next stage, which is kind of what you brought in, which is like you had an experience in a cohort, and then that experience shifted, right? And you saw your own relationship with the practice, with the community, with this one. And it's really important to say to men that are in here, like, we're not the only place you can do this kind of work, right? Like, there are other amazing communities out there. There are beautiful men that are doing great work out there, but we are the Unshakable Man. Like, this is our culture. This is the community that we have. And it's a living, breathing thing, right? Like, when you go through the fundamentals training and you have this experience of being in these 4 groups, when you make a commitment to a group inside of our community, I can already see how there are going to be subsets of men that are like, hey, I want to do 6 o'clock a.m. on a Saturday because I have kids, and like, that's the only time I can get in my entire life is at 6 o'clock a.m. on a Saturday. And maybe a man on the East Coast wants to do 9 o'clock a.m. on a Saturday, right? And you commit to each other to show up. And it's that commitment that creates the group two men start it, right? And then all of a sudden you have a third, and then you have 5, and then you have 8, right? And then we have our community groups, which are consistent, right? Like these have been running for 2 years and they've gone from 5 to 40, right? And it's very, very cool to be here with you gentlemen, appreciating this out loud, knowing that there's going to be men that are coming into the community for their very first time. You're going to be going through this. And then after you have this experience, you have this felt internal, you can truly deeply appreciate and savor what it is like. That's what I've been meaning to say this whole time. I forgot savoring, right? Like we can savor the experience, right? We can taste it. We know what it's like to be in one. Now you know if it's worthy, if it makes sense to actually make a deeper commitment to this work, right? Like when you are on Instagram and you find out about Unshakable Man, or your coworker or your friend says, hey, I'm in this group and it's kind of cool, you might like it. Even if you said, I'm willing to make a commitment for the next year, you're making it from a place of bravado or from a place of intensity or aggression. And good for you. Go for it. Beginner's mind, jump right in, make that commitment. But once you've been through 4 groups, I think you can really savor it, right? And now you know you can actually make a choice about like, hey, does this really work for me, right? And if you make a bigger commitment to actually create your own group, which we're going to need more of, we need more men who are willing to show up and to hold that space and learn to be facilitators. Now your commitment is helping other men make that commitment, right? And it's just this beautiful circular thing. And so
I have to admit that I am so moved by you using the word savor, because that just I'm somewhat of a foodie person. So, and you've already heard, all of you have already heard and witnessed me use analogies already. So, and yeah, I just want to reinforce what you said about savory. Is that to savor your experience, and to that point, use all 5 senses in going through, and take your time when using your 5 senses. You know, like, how does it feel to you? How does it smell to you? And that's a real thing. What does it look like? What does it taste like? And how does it sound? You can do this with a glass of wine, a bottle of beer, toothpaste. You can use it with a steak, whatever. But it's always, if you take the time and pass all of that through your 5 senses, you'd be amazed at what you can pull out of it. Yeah. And this process, definitely, when you're in a group of men, don't just hop in and look around and say something and hop right back out, but slowly step in, check in. And that's what this is about. We are asking you, now I'm going to speak second person. We're asking you to slow down, step in, be slow, and be methodical. And that's probably not the right word, but slow down and be deliberate. That's the word. With yourself and the process.
Yeah. That is what we're inviting, right? And to another group, again, another thing we can talk about in a Thursday coaching call is interoception and exteroception as a felt sense, right? We have our 5 senses, and then we have the tactile physical ability to feel into our body, right? And that is an actual empathetic skill, to be able to slow down enough to feel the energetic movements on or in our intestines, to notice how tension in our body and to let it go, right? And the deeper and deeper we get into our body, the great wisdom dwells in the body. We connect to the world through our body, right? We have thoughts and images in our head that create sensations in or on the body, or sensations in or on the body that trigger thoughts and images in the head. And these are things we're going to talk about, but this is just our fundamentals training, right? And the whole idea is to have this experience and to savor it. And I think I'll say I feel excited and grounded and just overjoyed at getting to share this experience with the two of you, the three of us here. And my sense is that we've conveyed this, that our through the way we've shown up in this space, that in my sense we have conveyed that that's what this is. That this isn't some course that you're going to go purchase online and put in your to-do list and never do it. That this is an actual experience, right? Like when you sign up to do this, there's 10 or 12 other men, maybe 20, maybe 40. My mind hasn't really gone beyond that. My mind really is at the level of like a white sheet of paper where I can write down all of the men's first and last names, and we can actually welcome them in every month. And that's what this is. And I think that maybe this is a great place to shift, right? And to transition and to close our final session, is that when men sign up for this, you are actually being physically welcomed in to move through this process. And there are 6 other stewards right now on the other end. And on that last week of the month, when we close enrollment for the next week, those men are on a list. And we will miss you. If we don't see you in a group that week, we will miss you, right? But if you don't maintain your commitment and get back to us, sure, there might be men that just drift and ghost, and that happens, and I'll feel sad about that. I will mourn that. I do notice, right? But the idea here is to be able to move through this process and to be able to actually deeply savor something in the end, right? And to know, is this something that's worthy of a deeper commitment for me in my life? So with that being said, your stretch this week is to go to your 4th group and to celebrate simply having finished this fundamentals training. Then to move through an appreciation ritual. Just what have you appreciated about this process? What have you appreciated? What have you learned? What has it been like? And then finally, to acknowledge your commitment, to either burn that hidden contract and let the guys in the group know that you're done. And after that happens, you can send us an email and we would be happy to cancel your membership right away. We've designed this so that you can come in here and try this out for a month. Or if you're making a commitment to be here and you're interested in maintaining that commitment, when you make the commitment, the men in the space will then be able to, just like Londell, you had said, right? When you acknowledge what your commitment is, other men hear it, right? And when we hear it, we can meet you there, right? We can meet each other where we are. And that's, I think, Mike, that's your equal exchange of energy that you always like to share in group, right? Like we're not saving each other, right? The men in this space are showing up. I'm actually taking responsibility for my life and for my experience, and I'm opening and sharing it with another man. And then those other men are able to receive me and to meet me where I am and maybe help me go 1 step further, right? Or 2 steps further, right? But we're not saving each other. We're not forcing. We're not, right? We're meeting each other where we are. And so it's been so special to get to record these episodes. I'll pass it on to Mike. Do you have anything you want to share or say to just close out our 4th and final section of the fundamentals course?
For me, I'm just excited to to bring new men into this work. And it's been an awesome experience sharing these podcasts with you, Chris, and with you, Londell. I've learned a tremendous amount just being a part of this. So I look forward to welcoming all the new men into the community.
Lon. And Londell.
Definitely. I am just really grateful for the time, Chris, that you have spent in shepherding this community. I am grateful for Mike for being a friend and for spending his time and efforts in developing our stewards community. He does a lot of work for us and with us. And to the both of you, I see you both as dear friends, and I'm very happy to that the universe has put you all into my life, brought us together. And for the men who are listening to this and who will be a part of our community, I look forward to meeting all of you and spending time with you and sitting in circle with you and celebrating your accomplishments, no matter the size, learning to appreciate all that you bring to the circle, and honoring all of your commitments, and just really getting to know and share with you what makes you an unshakable man. And so for that, I look quite forward to embracing.
Well, hell, I want to celebrate that.
Awesome, guys. Awesome. This has been so rad. If you're listening to this and you are in the community and this is your fourth section, this is your fourth group, I can't wait to see you in there. If you're not in the community yet and you haven't gone over to enroll, when you're listening to this, just know that we open enrollment the last week of every month and close it just before the first week of the month starts, and we will be here to receive you into the community for the next cohort of the Unshakable Man Fundamentals course. Thank you so much for listening. Good night.
Night,
everyone.